are connected in for this evening. Let's look to the minutes of April 13th that are in your council packet, and do they meet with your approval?
I move to approve the minutes as received.
Councilor Morton, and a second by Councilor Martin Willis. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion carries. Thank you very much. Karen, do we have anybody out there for visitor or public comment? I don't. She's saying no. Okay, I'm going to go immediately to reports. Let's start with the swearing in of a new police officer. Jason, would you roll that one, please?
Today, we continue a time-honored tradition here in Independence of the mayor swearing in a new police officer. This is a really special thing that I really enjoy doing, and I'm glad we are able to do it in front of council and the members of our community. A new police officer joining our department is joining a very professional operation. Not every police operation in our state is accredited. Very few are, and we have one of those police departments. We really support our police department here because they believe in customer service and serving all members of our community in a wonderful, even-handed and way that is such that brings honor to the whole community. So I'm really excited to be able to administer the oath of office to our new police officer, and I turn it over to Chief Mason to make a proper introduction. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight I'd like to introduce our newest police officer, Julio Navarro. Julio grew up in Independence and Salem, but considers Independence his hometown. He holds degrees from Chemeketa Community College, as well as a Bachelor of Arts degree from Western Oregon University. In 2014, Julio graduated from our local Reserve Academy as an Independence Police Reserve, and he has served in that role since. Also in 2017, Julio was selected to work for the Independence Police Department as a community service officer, and until recently, a few days ago, he held that position. And now we're really pleased that we get to give Julio the honor of being a full-time police officer with Independence. Julio and his wife Jasmine reside in Monmouth with their son Julian. Julio is replacing the position vacated by Detective Sarah Sharp, so that everyone can keep track. He'll be going to the police academy in late May and returning to us in late September. Mayor McCardle, would you conduct the swearing in of Officer Julio Navarro?
Please raise your right hand. I say your name.
I, Julio Navarro,
Having been duly appointed by the Chief of Police,
have been duly appointed by the Chief of Police,
say on oath
say on oath
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution and law of the United States,
the state of Oregon,
the state of Oregon,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Independence,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Independence,
and that I will perform the duties
and that I will perform the duties
of the office of police officer
of the office of police officer
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That is something obviously I enjoy doing, and I think it's a wonderful statement to our community that we do that in front of council. Moving forward, council members, you have a couple of board appointments in your packet on page 11 through 14, and I make those and I ask for your approval. Don't all jump in at once, please.
So I'm assuming you need a motion here?
Please.
Okay, so I would I would move to appoint Natasha Adams to position 9 on the Independence Days Commission, and Jonathan J. to position 2 on the Parks and Recreation Board.
Have a motion?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilor Takis. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed? There's no opposition. Motion carries. Thank you very much. just to keep you folks informed, I'm issuing a proclamation cheering for Arbor Day, and that Arbor Day is good. And so that sounded funny. Arbor Day is good. So you have the proclamation in the packet. To keep you informed of what I've been doing, as I've in the last couple of weeks, I've met with staff members several times from Congressman Schrader's office. I've also met with staff from U.S. Senator Wyden's office as we talk about projects in and around Independence related to some of the federal funding that's coming down. With the help of the city manager, we also put together legislative testimony to the Oregon Ways and Means Committee, helping provide some framework for them for how they're going to be spending some of those federal dollars that are coming in. We're talking about suggesting they be forward-looking, that they focus on assisting those who are definitely in need, both business and individuals. And one of the things that we're asking them to really make sure happens is flexibility. Try not to put too many strings on things, because that allows us to work more quickly. Keeping you also informed, coming up on May 7th, the LOC is doing their spring symposium. You're all welcome to attend. I'm going to be on a panel with several other mayors talking about connecting with the community during a crisis. They've asked me to do that, and so I will be doing that. I also want to cheer for a couple of folks here in town. The Starduster Cafe was recognized by the Monmouth Independence Chamber of Commerce as the Business of the Year, and also Kate Schwartzler of Indy Commons was recognized as the first citizen for Monmouth and Independence. That's a high honor, and congratulations to both the business and also to Kate for what they do for our community. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Councilor Liaison reports, so you can tell us what's been going on. So the first thing we're going to hear from is traffic safety, and Councilor Roden, I think you have that to you.
Yes, we had our meeting last week, and unfortunately we didn't have a quorum, so we weren't able to vote on anything, but we did discuss a few matters. And what was pretty interesting and I'm really grateful for is that Fred Evander came to us saying that he has worked really hard to get Portland State University down here. Their students are going to come down and do a study and help us analyze our city to make it more pedestrian and bike friendly. And I think they have some really good plans of trying to make our streets less congested and bike safety paramount. And I think I'm really glad that he reached out to them to provide this service free to our city and hopefully make our city a lot more friendly to pedestrians and bikes.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Job, historic preservation.
Thank you, Mayor. They did vote to allow the demolition of a historic single-family home and garage at 46 North Walnut, Independence. It's something they'd been looking at and trying to figure out if there was a way to save the home, and it was determined it could not be saved. So they did allow, did follow through with voting and saying, yes, you can demolish. One of the things that they're going to be really working on being more proactive in the future on the historic homes, to if there's something that's looking in distress, they want to take a look at that before it gets to that point of no return. So that's kind of where they're at on things.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate that. Councilor Kaur for the Independence Days Commission.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Independence Days Commission met on the 8th of April, where we started planning a modified park event. Given today's announcement that Polk County and all of its cities are going back into extreme risk, I think it would be prudent to defer until May's meeting to give council an update on where we are.
Thank you, Councilor. And I just want to say, I hope you will carry the message that we recognize how difficult planning events are when everything keeps changing, not for bad, just the way the virus is going forward and we're dealing with it. And it's not easy. And I just recognize the hard work that's being put into having to think several different directions. And so please let them know.
I tried reaching out to the chair of the commission today, so that we can have some conversations prior to that meeting. So hopefully that meeting will be more productive. So
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Pessimir, I think you have a report.
I do. Not a lot to report on. The museum construction is going along well. If you haven't had a chance to kind of peek in the windows or peek your head in one of the doors that are open, that's definitely moving on. They have a bunch of the metal studs up, I believe, here this week. They'll be working a lot on the sheetrock in the areas over the office and the meeting space. A lot of the work that they've really been doing, though, is stuff you can't see up in the attic with the HVAC system and electrical systems as they move things up there. So project is moving forward, mostly on schedule. We have a meeting with them tomorrow to make sure that we're still on schedule, but our expectation is they're going to be mostly finished with the work at the end of June, beginning of July. And so we're going to hopefully be wanting a lot of volunteers to join us in mid-July to help us move from one location to another. So it's exciting to see that project come together, and it will come together fast, especially as the core work gets done and they get onto more of the stuff that you would see in a normal space. But feel free to stop by and look in. The contractors are really nice. Just be safe, and but it's definitely making progress. I wanted to let you know that we are very shortly going to be applying for a quick response grant from ODOT. We were looking at the regular transportation growth management application process. And that is something that we've used in the past. It's what the funding we got for updating our transportation system plan. It's the fund that we use when we were looking at the South Area Concept Plan. It's an area, it's a pot of money where you can look at land use related and transportation type items in your process. And that usually comes up once a year. It's a competitive process, but ODOT noticed that since there's a new owner of Central Plaza in that area where we were kind of looking to do something, they felt that maybe a quick response grant might be more advantageous because they have a little a quicker timeline as well as a little bit more flexibility on what you can do. But essentially what we're really trying to do is figure out is how that Central Plaza area plays into the bigger picture of Independence from both the transportation perspective and a land use perspective. That's an area that we heard really quite succinctly during the 2040 vision plan, is that area needed some reinvestment. It needed some thought process into how it was going to function. And, you know, we heard a lot of other things during the 2040 vision plan around senior housing, around affordable housing, around transportation networks, particularly PED and bicycle transportation, and how residents can get to their shopping centers and the areas that they tend to go to for their goods and services. So we're trying to bring that all together under one kind of study plan that we can really take a much more detailed look at that and figure out if there are barriers that are in the way, and then how we might be able to move those barriers out of the way, working collaboratively in that area and accomplish 3 or 4 or 5 different things that came out of the 2040 vision plan. So we're really excited about it, and we hopefully that ODOT will be excited as well and be able to fund that project, because it's certainly something that we have heard is important to the community and could definitely use some thought. I mentioned at the last council meeting that we were bringing someone on to kind of help us with our federal agenda, and I'm happy to let you know that since then we have submitted 4 projects to Representative Schrader for consideration for either reauthorization or appropriation projects. Those are projects that weren't really well known, but it's a process where each individual representative from the House is going to get a certain amount of money in order to put to projects in the state of Oregon. And so on the reauthorization side, which is transportation, we put forward the Chestnut Street Bridge and 13th Street extension. Now, if you remember right, I just went through a whole capital improvement plan with you, and I don't think I mentioned this one, and I didn't, because the reality is there wasn't a funding source out there that made sense for that project, so it wasn't something that we're planning on doing next year. When I went through the capital improvement plan, we're really focusing on next year. But this is really the linchpin to the south area and making that area work down there. There's only one bridge crossing that we actually need for the transportation system. And the conventional wisdom is that's going to be an extension of Chestnut Street across Ash Creek to 13th, and then 13th back up into town. And that will eventually lead to resolving some of the issues that we've been talking about with 7th Street and with other streets by providing other connections out of the area that's south of Monmouth Street. It'll kind of disperse the traffic to different intersections. And ultimately Chestnut Street will connect up with 16th Street. So that would then allow an opportunity to get to a signal light at that end. So it's really a critical project in order to making that happen. And so we were happy to get that project out there. The list of projects that the representative is considering, he had 11 projects that he put on the list, and this was one of them. So we were very thankful that we've at least made it that far, and we'll see how it moves forward in the process. And then on the appropriation side, we also put forward 3 projects for consideration. The first is the library expansion. We are looking at not only physically expanding the library some in order to give more space for a number of things, including some storage, which is something that is very much missing from that facility. But also to expand the Hispanic book collection, especially for adults. That is something that really is a resource that we rely heavily on Salem for, but we need our own local collection to make sure that we have a good collection of that, as well as some furniture and just some other, physical upgrades to that building to move forward. That's something we've been talking about for a long time, but again, not really a good funding source. So something that we hadn't really put forward. But as we find these funding sources, obviously we have a list of projects that we're tracking all the time, and we make sure that we try to put those forward. The other projects, 2 projects that we put forward, one was Riverview Park. I think we've talked about that a lot before. I'm really looking to clean up the parking area, but more importantly, creating a ADA access down to the river so people can get down to that area and be able to get to a location where they can enjoy access to the river, as well as a spot to pull boats out for kayaks and other boats in order to make sure that if people want that activity, they have convenient access in and out of the river as well. And finally, the other project that we put forward is the 9th Street lift station. That is kind of a central lift station that's pretty close to the lagoons on 9th Street, but we have most of the sewage waters that are collected, especially in the south area of town, end up at that lift station, and that station is undersized. And so that is a critical project to making sure that we keep ahead of growth opportunities and making sure that we are doing what we need to do in order to get the sewage to the treatment plant and be treated. So a couple projects there that are really critical to growth, both the 9th Street lift station and the Chestnut Bridge. So excited to get those out there and move those forward. So I just wanted to give you an update. Obviously, we won't know for a couple months, how these projects are going to stack up against other requests, but we were glad to get that out there and had to do it on very short order. I think you've heard maybe, or maybe haven't, that the Senate, I think, announced yesterday that they're also going to be doing these type of projects. And so we'll be figuring out if we have other projects or if we want to have these go out through the Senate appropriations and reauthorization process, or whether we're just going to stay with the House. So, but chances are we will do both and more. So we certainly have good projects, and we want to do the best that we can for the community. So thanks to some of my staff for putting in some extra hours to make that happen. And then finally, as everybody knows, Friday, the county is moving to the extreme risk We had a lot of conversations around City Hall as if we should kind of step our times back and not be open as often. And what we've found is that when we do that, we tend to get people congregating and coming at certain times during the day, and which is kind of the opposite of what we want to do. So we probably will just keep our regular office hours at City Hall, be closed from 11:30 to 12:30, I believe, for lunch, but open the rest of the time. Currently, we're looking at library hours. It's a little bit more complicated there with a number of people in the space and everything. So we will be looking at that, and I'll get back to you. And then our event center will be mostly closed during the extreme risk time that we're at. So definitely making some adjustments for that, but also trying to make sure we provide services and keep our staff safe. So with that, any questions?
I just wanted to comment that I found out this morning at the county commission meeting that the assessment for risk level will now be going on a weekly rather than a bi-weekly basis. So it may change more quickly than it has.
Thank you. Okay. We all still here? Okay. Let's go on to Mr. Pesmere. I think you have a brief staff report for the related to the climate resolution.
Yes, Mayor. So thank you. So I will be brief, and mostly because this is a resolution that really is very policy related and very much brought forward for council consideration. I know that Councilor Core has been doing the majority of work on this and collecting comments and working through getting this done. So I really don't have a whole lot to say other than before you have a resolution that took into consideration, I think, a number of comments that were made. And I think the only thing that really staff has a comment on is related to the committee or the task force that we put together for this. Obviously, the language in here recognizes that the task force will be put together. There would be a lot of details that need to be figured out. But it's my understanding that this task force will be a group that makes recommendations to council that doesn't have the authority to act on the behalf of council. So with that understanding, I think I'll just let either Councilor Core talk about this or council consider whether or not they want to move this motion or this resolution forward.
Councilor Core, did you want to make any comments?
If that's okay, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
I said the concerns that were raised during the last time we brought this forward to the task force members, and what you see in front of you is a compromise that I believe covers the task force's goal of recognizing the global climate crisis and establishing a joint committee within our communities to make recommendations to council. It also takes into consideration the recommendation at the last meeting to localize the resolution. And I'm happy to answer any questions if I can from the other counselors.
If there are questions or conversations, this would be the appropriate time.
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I feel like this resolution still didn't meet what I was looking for how this is going to economically affect our community. And that was a big issue that I wanted to make sure that it's just not some feelings that we're trying to get done, but how is it really going to really affect, climate change, greenhouse gases, I wanted that if we're going to have this resolution, I want to have scientific facts that show us if we do this, this is going to be the result, and it's going to give us this much net gain at this economic cost. So I feel that this resolution still does not meet that objective that I set forth. Furthermore, I feel that because we're still looking at so many changes coming down from the new Biden administration, I feel it's really premature to look at this resolution right now when I feel that we may be conflicting with the federal government and they may have, you know, just different regulations on how they want to do things and how they want to, you know, solve these problems. I think that we should maybe just put this resolution on hold for a while and see how things are panning out. I know that I believe the Biden administration is meeting in the next few months on this global issue, and I just don't want us to affect the independence and Monmouth economy by this resolution in a premature manner that will negatively affect potentially every member of this community. So that's my problem with it.
I don't believe the resolution is directive in any way, shape, or form. You're right, there's going to be some guidance coming from the Biden administration within the next few days, I believe, not months. What this resolution does is it creates an infrastructure in which we can observe and we can research and we can educate and we can make recommendations. This is not the last resolution on climate change. This is just the establishment of a structure in which to address it from a community perspective.
Thank you.
Well, great. I mean, just listening to Councilor Kaur, I mean, it makes sense then that we just wait if it's a few more days just to put this on hold for a while.
I don't think anything that's going to come from the Biden administration is going to be anything that we're going to be able to address immediately, or that it would even impact us. We don't know that, but I think it's important to have an infrastructure in place to start looking at this and figuring out how we're going to position ourselves to respond.
And I just think that the government likes to have so many infrastructures in place that's the problem. Things tend to not get done because so many people want to be in charge of things. I think sometimes we just have to sit back and let things happen, and then we just adjust to it from there.
Thank you, Counselor. Other people who would like to say something. Counselor Martin Willis, please.
So first of all, I'd like to thank Councilor Kaur for obviously her hard work on this and for taking what was really a very lengthy and complicated and much more global resolution and bringing it down to a much more manageable local level. So thank you for your efforts there. And I really see this as localizing that. I'm not seeing anything in this language that might be in conflict with anything federally coming down the road. As we've learned from our legislature, you can do fix-its at a later date if necessary. So yeah, after reading this through several times, yeah, I would absolutely be in support of the modified version. And thank you, Councilor Kaur, and the climate folks in both of our communities for working so steadfastly on this.
Counselor Morton.
Yes, thank you. I also appreciate Councilor Kaur's work on this. I know it took a long process to get to this point. I think what we have now is the perfect vehicle to begin taking an accounting of the issues that are involved in this resolution. And what we needed to establish first was the infrastructure, and especially the means with which we could collaborate with another community to come out of this with some very positive actions. And I believe the resolution does that. I don't think it was appropriate in some of the original documents that I saw to try to impose any kind of monetary restrictions or necessities on the public until we had our infrastructure in place and knew how we were going to deal with this cross community.
Okay. Additional Counselor Takis.
So yeah, I'll say I much appreciate this version over the last one. And it seems like, as I read it, there's a lot more of about educating and figuring out how we're going to help people deal with the mandates that come down from the federal government and state government. but the couple of questions I have, one is how is this going to be put together? Who are the people? How, are they appointed by mayors, or how that all works? I'd like to know a little bit more about that. I also have a question about one of the paragraphs that I'm not sure I really understand why it's in there. It's part about the Latino community that makes up a large portion of our agricultural workforce. I understand that they're a large portion of our agricultural workforce, but first of all, we don't know that it's going to be a hardship for them. It's quite possible that rising climate could give us opportunities in other crops that might increase the demand for agricultural workers and actually increase pay, because of specialized labor. The other thing is, it doesn't seem like there's a good reason to say, really to pick out a certain ethnicity. It should be all agriculture workers, not the Latino. So that actually bothers me. I'd rather that was not in there. There's a passage farther down that talks about what is it? I think vulnerable communities, and that just seems like a better, more all-encompassing statement for that portion. So that's something that bothers me.
Councilor Corr, since you were the drafter, did you want to make any response to Councilor Takis for explanation?
Or that was a nod, Tom, more to our historic community. I get your point about calling out and ethnicity versus community. I get that, and I think it's perfectly okay to instead say our community, which makes up a large percentage of our region's agricultural workforce. If that suits you, I think I'm fine with making a change to that and just removing the Latino reference. That was more of a nod to one, our inclusivity resolution and the history of our community.
Yeah, I think that would be better.
Okay.
And Councilor Corr, did you want to respond to the other question that Councilor Takis had about who makes up the how this is going to move forward with that?
That remains to be seen. You're talking about the makeup of the committee itself.
Yes, I think that was your question, wasn't it, Councilor Takis?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a question maybe city managers can address. I'm not exactly sure how you set these committees up. My sense would be, it would be like any other commission. People put in their applications and then we appoint them, we approve and appoint them in council meetings. I don't necessarily see that this needs to be a mayoral nomination, but I'm certainly open to discussion on that subject.
Well, may I? So I think with other commissions, doesn't the city council have to kind of approve the bylaws and that sort of thing of the commission and how they're selected? Isn't that put into code? Would that be put into code, or how would that work?
Tom?
Oh, yeah, let me jump in here because I think that's still something that needs to be determined, and certainly that's something that I've talked about with the city manager of Monmouth, and we're both interested in making sure that this commission gets off to a great start, figuring out all those details. So I don't know if it would be coming back to council to adopt bylaws. I think it would be good for them to have some structure in place so things are understood, and I think we're committed to working through that and helping figure that out. So it may come back to council for adoption of that. It might not. My guess is it probably wouldn't, and it'll just kind of be its own entity because there are two cities, and that they will, have the freedom to do what they do, so they can come back and make the recommendations to city council. As far as who gets appointed there, we have a long-standing process, but if you guys want to modify it, that's fine as well. So.
Well, I think that it's. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Councilor
I just think it's important that before we apply this resolution, we have these what ifs answered, because I think this is one of the most important commissions that we would have if they're going to be determining policy and or recommending policy on our community, that there should be a specific standard for who gets on this board. Not let's put this, let's pretend we have this infrastructure together and then we have all these, well, what if this and how is this going to happen and who's going to run it? That's not infrastructure. That's a stack of cards making a house. That's not something that, for something as big and as complex as this could be for our community, to have this what if, and I'm not sure what it's going to look like, I think that's dangerous.
Other counselors, Counselor Morton, and then Counselor Job.
Thank you. I believe we are treading on new territory here in looking at creating a commission that's cross communities. It sets a great standard for future work for us, but I do believe that the infrastructure has to be in place before we can start answering those what if questions. We need to have the body in place in order to move these issues forward.
Counselor Job.
I did have a question. It says right in the middle. It is hereby resolved that the City of Independence recognizes the global climate crisis and its current and projected effects on our community and its residents. And I am not clear what the current and projected effects on our community are. It says that we're recognizing it, we understand it. So what is it about Independence? What is the current and projected?
I can't address that in detail. I think Stephen Howard addressed some of that in our last meeting. I can certainly get you some information on that, but it is generally things that are accepted worldwide that affect generally every community. It's not necessarily specific to Independence.
Okay, well, it just says right there that it's the City of Independence recognizes the global climate crisis and its current projected effects on our community and its residents. Because, we have the federal government, we have the state of Oregon. And so as far as Independence goes, that's what we're working on. So I just wanted to know what those effects are that we're projecting.
And I saw that as an alignment with the global community on what kind of effects were happening. So just to put us in there and to say that we were aware of all of this and going to take some steps to assist in the mitigation of it.
Counselor Morton, can you give me a couple of things to write down in my notes that you're thinking globally this is going to happen to Independence?
That would be actually the work of the committee, but we did have some things brought to us through the meetings, the last couple of meetings that we have had, including I remember some things about natural gas, and I remember some things about carbon equity, and all of those we're referencing ourselves with respect to the global climate crisis, and that puts us in the ballpark. That puts us in the game. And I think that's the purpose of this particular resolution, is to say that we acknowledge that there are challenges and that we are going to be part of the solution rather than part of the challenges.
I'm going to jump in here and offer a couple of things here. As I see this is the first step in creating a infrastructure to begin having a conversation about what we need to take a look at, what some of the potential problems and what some of the potential solutions are. And I think it's really important that all that this committee is going to do is come up with ideas and information that they can share with us, because nothing is going to happen without the action of this council. And I think that's nothing will happen. They'll come and say, we should do this, we think it should be this way or that way, and this is why, and this is what the numbers show, this is what the research shows, this is what the background is of why we should be doing this. So, and is everything laid out in advance? No, it is not at this point, but I think this is more of a declaration that we agree that it needs to be looked at. We want to work with our sister city. We want to create some structure because we can create any structure that we choose to and any way we want to do it. But at some point we have to begin. And I see this as a general opportunity to begin that conversation, or at least begin putting the structure in place so a conversation can begin. The details are going to take a while to figure out as we work with our partner next door. And as Councilor Morton said, this is something that we haven't done at least recently. And so I think that this is a reasonable start. We're not committing to anything other than saying, we want to do this, we want to work with our neighbor, and we're willing to listen to recommendations that are brought forth. And what we do with recommendations when they're brought forth, that's a whole different discussion. And the council will be able to make decisions on what those recommendations are and what the information is. Our city manager and I were talking about, since our staff is very busy at this point, anything that comes forward, they're going to have to provide that quality information so that we can make reasonable choices as we go forward. So that's my take on this, and I think it's a reasonable step forward in a thoughtful way. We're not rushing into anything. We're going forward with our sister city. Are there new, Councilor Takis? Thank you.
Yeah. So as I read this, it says that the City of Independence commits to establish a joint committee, and that's fine. I can support that. I do take Councilor Roden's point that this could be a very powerful committee if it's not set up right. And so I just want to emphasize that from my perspective, we want to really look at the way this is set up once it's done. I'm fine with this resolution with the changes we talked about, but I do want to kind of look at this when we actually get it set up. And I know that's going to be some negotiation with the city of Monmouth, and that's going to be a process, and that's fine. But we want to look at that pretty carefully.
And one last thing for me on this is I am going to vote no on this, just so you know. And I'm voting no on it because I feel that we have not answered my questions of the economic impact it will have on our community. I feel we have not addressed who will make up this committee. I think it's very dangerous for the city to go into this resolution hoping for the best, but having no guidelines set forth for the people who are actually going to serve, what background they have in serving, and not to be a political committee, but a committee that's actually backing the science. So for those reasons, I do not feel that it is appropriate for us to go forward with this, and so I would vote no for this.
Thank you, Councilor. Additional discussion. This is an action item, and if someone would like to suggest action.
I move to approve resolution.
Sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry you garbled, and so I wasn't able to hear. It was Councilor Roden, I think you're
yeah, I was going to set forth a motion too, but I don't know the procedure for this.
Hold on, I already recognize Councilor Kaur. Go ahead, okay. Councilor Kaur.
I move to approve resolution 21-1548, a resolution recognizing the global climate crisis as submitted.
Second.
May I ask a question? Councilor Kaur, may I ask, were you wanting to make the amendment on the word Latino in the line?
Yes, thank you very much. Let's change it to, I move to approve resolution 21-5148, a resolution recognizing the global climate crisis with the following amendment.
Please.
Changing the term Latino, or removing the term Latino from paragraph 3.
Okay, so I have a motion and I have a second by Councilor Martin Willis. Now we have discussion. Is there any discussion from anybody?
I'm going to vote no on this as well.
Okay.
Can I put forth a resolution that we wait to see the rewritten resolution before we vote on it, just to make
So
sure
you're-
there's no ambiguity in it.
So you're proposing an amendment that would delay that? Is that
Yes.
that you're proposing an amendment to? Would this be? I'm thinking for a second, Mr. Pessimir, help me here. Am I looking for an amendment, or is that a table?
I think a table would be probably
The proper motion?
the proper motion, or
Okay.
it could be an amendment, but it would need a second, and then it would need.
Right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take that as a motion to table. And so the motion to table, and is there a second to the motion to table?
I second that.
There is a motion to second to the motion to table. Motion to table is non-debatable. All in favor of tabling the motion, say aye.
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 I have Counselor Roden. I have Counselor Roden, Counselor Job, and Counselor Takis who are moving to table. And opposing the motion to table.
No,
Nay.
And so I have Counselor Morton, Counselor Willis, was that a no on?
I'm a nay.
And Counselor Kaur. That was a no. So that's a 3-3. And so it's a tie. And before I cast a vote, what I'd like to do is if we do go to table, I'd like to bring it back with I'm going to ask our city manager, can we bring this back at a particular time?
I
can table this. If I vote to table, we can put it time specific.
I believe so. When you get into Robert's Rules of Orders on tabling, they get a little complicated, but I think you guys can do what you want and move forward. And Counselor City Recorder, if you have any comments on that, feel free to chime in here. But I think if you want to bring it back a certain time, you certainly could.
I think we could table the time specific. Our City Recorder. Okay, she's giving me them. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to vote against tabling at this point. But what I would like to do, so that's a no. So the motion to table fails. But what I would like to do is push this to effectively getting to almost the same place. Can we push this to our second meeting in May? And Mr. Pessimir, would that give us enough time to work on some of the issues related to this?
Actually, we have a motion currently on the floor for approval of the resolution as amended by striking Latino from paragraph 3.
That's right.
So that motion would need to be withdrawn for any further consideration.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification. Good point. So under discussion, can we how much time do you think it would take, Mr. Pessimir, to work something out with with your counterpart in Monmouth?
I really have no idea. It's probably going to take some time.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to the main motion right now, up or down on the resolution in front of us. So is there any further discussion?
I would just like to say one more time that it's better to table this and make sure we have a good final product than to rush through this.
Like to call the question?
Thank you. All in favor of the motion to approve the resolution as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed.
Nay.
No.
So I have no from Counselor Roden and I have no from Counselor Job. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you the motion passes, and thank you. So with that said, I would really like, and I will commit to working with staff to help address address the process questions and keeping council fully informed as we move forward. Okay?
And as someone who voted yes for this, I have no objection to you doing that.
Thank you.
I would like to see it be come into fruition with every possible chance of success in the meeting between the two cities.
Agreed. And I want to acknowledge the comments that were made, even the folks that voted no on this, that heard your comments, and I will commit, as I said, I will commit with working with staff to try to bring you some structure that makes this a little easier to move forward with. Okay. Moving forward in our agenda, is there any council announcements?
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
So is there any, there is no, we haven't talked about any time frame. Do you know where we're at? Maybe city manager has a better idea when this committee would be up and running, or has any of that been discussed? If they approve it, I don't think they've approved it yet. Have they, or have
Yeah, I think we need to wait to figure out where Monmouth is going with this and kind of what their thoughts are, make sure that they are in line with what we're talking about here, and then have those conversations. So that's why I said I think it's going to take a little time. I think they're considering it here in the very near future. So hopefully we get some answers to that soon.
All right,
And then,
thank you.
And then everybody else is working on budget, so that kind of becomes all budget all the time.
Mhm.
And speaking of budget, I just want to let anybody who is watching know that while this may be a shorter council meeting, next month council members have budget along with council meetings and the other things that they have going on. So it is it will be a full time. Are there any announcements from people?
I have several.
Please do.
Okay, so at the meeting a month ago, I believe we had Marion County come in, and I believe we heard a report from ODOT about the new weight limits on the River Road Bridge. And when we heard the meeting, is my understanding that they had spoken to the farmers and the other agricultural businesses on the other side of the river and said that there would be minimal impact to these businesses. But the businesses have been reaching out to me, and I reached out to them to get some more information. So Blue Heron, Sandy M Farms, Brayman Farms, Grossman, their operations are all but stopped. They cannot harvest their blueberries because they can't bring them over the bridge. They can't get materials in to continue their agricultural process. They can't make deliveries. They can't get deliveries to Mars Brothers over the bridge. This is huge. We've basically landlocked these farms down below the bridge because they can't go Ankeny Hill because of the overpass, and they can't go River Road because of the two underpasses. And so what I'm asking today is that we do whatever we can to get them exempted from these rules that have essentially have crippled these businesses. And this is why, you know, when we take resolutions and we look at government solving things, sometimes it's not always the best, because you hope for the best, but if you don't have clear guidelines and, you know, clear outcomes, then these types of things happen. And so now these farmers are working with Marion County, because I know their land's on Marion County, trying to get exemptions, but I'm hoping that the mayor, with his, you know, knowledge and people he can contact, and us as city council, anybody we can contact to help these farmers so that they can actually produce their crops, because, and not produce, but harvest and sell and keep their businesses up, because they feel that although they're on Marion County, they feel that they are citizens of Independence. And they've always served our community. Their kids go to Central High School, you know, IES, they've been here. And I feel like I personally let them down, because when we asked the question, is this going to impact the farms? The answer was minimal impact. And that's not what happened. And now they can't do what they're supposed to do. And so they've been told, like Blue Heron, they're just like, well, all you need to do is go buy a new fleet of trucks that have a smaller weight capacity. And they're just like, we don't have the money to double our fleet in trucks, because that's what we'd have to do. So there'd be double the amount of traffic over the bridge. There would be double the pollution from trucks driving. There would be double usage of the bridge. And then there's not even enough CDL qualified drivers to drive these vehicles. So I don't know what we can do for that, but something needs to be done for that, because I just feel horrible that they feel like they're alone and that nobody's backing them. And I hope we can somehow pool our brains together to try to fix this. And then after, if anybody has any questions on that, I have one other thing I'd like to bring up. But does anybody have any questions on this one?
I don't specifically have a question on that, but I know that I would be more than happy to sign on to a letter of support granting some local agricultural exemptions. And
Thank you.
just for folks that may not have been viewing at our last meeting, you know, we addressed that. I mean, that was not a vote of the council to adjust the weight limits. That was a report to us that this
Correct.
thing was going to happen. So I just want to clarify that it was not an action that resulted in those weight limits. So I would absolutely support local agriculture and seeking an exemption from Marion County and ODOT, because I absolutely agree with you. I mean, those folks they're members of our community, and they contribute significantly to our local economy.
I agree too.
I would do the same, yes.
Yes.
Councilor Roden, and I brought the issue up with Mr. Bessemer last week. So this is definitely hitting everybody very hard.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody doing this. I just want to make sure, and I'm not saying anybody would, but I want to get this done so that these guys don't have to worry about their harvest in a month. And so if you guys can, tell me what to do or how to do it or who we can call to get this done. But this can't be something that's delayed for these people. This needs resolution.
So I guess my question would be most likely for Mr. Pessimir. How can we get such a letter written for consideration? I would hope.
Councilor Roden, can you mute yourself? The wind's blowing through. Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Pessimir, did you get Councilor Martin Willis's question?
Were you finished, Councilor?
Yes. Yeah. How can we get a letter? Could we maybe have that at our next meeting to support our local agricultural folks?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, it's really important to me to hear from you guys, because obviously we're working on an area outside of our jurisdiction. So, but, happy to do that if that's the council's will, which it sounds like it is. So, I guess, a number of things. First off, it's probably really important that the people that do directly represent them are significantly involved in this process. So I think we, don't want to be dancing on other people's toes, and making sure that we're aware that Marion County needs to play a significant role in this. As you mentioned, it was Marion County that actually gave us the presentation a few weeks ago to just let our residents know of the issues that were going on. And this was, a process that was started by ODOT, and certainly any variances or changes, that would be allowed for certain businesses have to go through ODOT. So I think there's a lot of players here. So I think a letter kind of outlining what we're hearing and, the concerns, and to kind of play that role of convener to get people together to work to solve these problems would probably be the best. And so I think probably want to do a little bit of outreach to these affected entities as well, and get the information. Thanks for Councilor Roden for getting that process started, and then we can certainly craft something. And it may be that we just do that, if you're okay with the mayor kind of handling that, because it sounds like time is of the essence. And I don't want to necessarily wait 2 weeks to come back and run that all through you guys, if that's okay. Trying to get something out there sooner rather than later. But most importantly, getting the decision makers who really can make changes to get to the table and make sure that they're aware of this, and that they're working to resolve it at both the state and the federal, state and the county level. So
without objection, we'll move forward with that. I'll work with staff to do this. Okay, Councilor Roden,
Thank you.
Councilor Roden, you had a second thing you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up one more thing, and this is what I feel it's a positive thing, and I've been kind of negative Nelly so far. So I've been talking to West Coast Premier Tournaments, and they're really, really interested in discussing with the city the ballpark expansion of the fields. And I got a copy of what the city had proposed originally for the ballparks. And they have that copy, which is interesting because I didn't see it until they showed me what the city originally had. So I'm going to email that to Karen so she can send it out to everybody. But I would like to invite them to speak to council so that we can look at this, at what they're saying. They're telling me that they feel on a very conservative note that having these ballparks developed the way that the city had originally had them could bring in $250,000 to our economy every single weekend. And I'd like to hear more about that, because when the mayor said, let's find stuff we can do to help our local economy, I'm thinking $250,000 brought in to our community would benefit everybody, top to bottom, left to right, and it just be the one thing that we talk about on council today. We're actually bringing in money, we're raising property values, we could potentially improve our schools, everything that, Independence has the perfect location for this, and bringing all these people in and getting our restaurants after this COVID thing back up. And the sooner we can get on this to hopefully prepare for next spring, I would love it. And I don't know if there's any House or Senate funds we could research for having this type of ball field developed. But, if we could put our minds behind this and really try to focus on this a little bit more, I feel like, it's one of those things where the longer we wait on it, the more money we're losing for our community. And although I don't want to make a mistake on going forward with this, I feel that this is a good investment for our community and a good investment for every member of our community. And so I don't know if the council would like to hear from these people and talk to them, or if there's how we could research getting these things done. But I'm excited about this.
So we're going to let Mr. Pessimir follow up on this and see where this goes from there.
Yeah, we're happy to talk to anybody who wants to invest in our community. So
That's right. Additional announcements. Okay. Somebody say the word adjourn, please.
Adjourn, please.
All in favor, say aye.